Hey everybody, this is Michelle.
And this is Julie.
Welcome to A Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mic podcast. What is our podcast all about, you ask?
Well, we're two 50-something women with life experience and, plenty to say.
Which is exactly what we're going to do right now.
Hey, Michelle.
Julie, how has your day been?
You know, have you ever had a day where you just want your girlfriend time? You just want to come home and just be.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, things seem like they're a little more chaotic than normal in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever run across that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find myself withdrawing, actually. Girlfriend time would probably be a good idea, but I withdraw and kind of cocoon.
I know when you do that.
Yeah.
I've seen you do that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm laughing about this because as we were kind of getting ready to record, I'm driving home and I'm telling Michelle, you know what? I'm kind of overwhelmed today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing I was telling her is that's not even something that, 10 years ago you would have ever heard me say.
She probably doesn't remember, but what she said was, I'm fucking overwhelmed. I was like, oh, she's overwhelmed.
I know. But you start finding that you want to go to things that make you feel, I don't know, comfy.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to make some dinner. I'm going to see the dog. Everything's going to be great. It's no problem. And in the big scope of things, nobody's dying. Everything's fine. So those are the things that I kind of, my little soliloquy in my head say. But you know what I do, or what I did today anyway, I just washed that day off. Like I came home and it's hot. It's like 90 out, which is awesome. Anyway, even though you're working, but it's nice to like wear sandals and whatever. But I literally came home and just washed the day off. I wanted to get in the shower and just take a nice cool shower, and you just feel sticky and just kind of like, from working all day and everything.
I want to wash that day right out of my hair.
Wow. And she's harmonizing too. Yeah. So that's what I did. I came in and I'm like, you know what? I think we need to talk about this topic because I'm not the only one that has run across or felt that way. I'm sure. Well, I know. And, you take things like we'll talk about some of the causes of being overwhelmed. And as we go, I'm kind of laughing because as we go through this and talk about, these are the causes. These are the things that attribute to it. And here are some of the things that you can do to combat that. And I'm like, dude, what do I do to combat it? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Am I meditating? Am I, am I taking a hit off my vape? What am I doing? Everybody's different, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Everybody is different in how the overwhelm manifests itself.
Yeah.
And also, I think everybody's different in how they try to manage their overwhelm. To your point, like you were just saying, whether it's taking a hit off the vape pen, having a drink, going on a walk, exercising, girl time, friend time, whatever it might be, is going to be different for everybody. And I think that a lot of the overwhelm comes from the productivity that is so glorified in society now.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
The expectations I think that we put on ourselves, like I was saying to you, it's like I have this expectation, of myself, and I know people do just in general that are, successful people or people that have, set goals for themselves. They're not quiet quitting, at their job or whatever. They're wanting to do well. And I'm in a real big service industry. And so it's really important to me that my clients feel like they're supported and that everything's quote perfect, right? Well, there's no such thing as perfect.
Yeah.
And that's what I have to always go back and tell myself. It's like, if it didn't go exactly the way you wanted it to, it's not the end of the world. There are some things, of course, that would create a shit show with my work, but I don't let those things happen. But anyway, it's not just obviously work. I mean, there's lots of different things that if you think about it can cause stress or that overwhelmed feeling that people have. I mean, work responsibilities, like I mentioned, of course, relationships can stress people out, or just, I'm thinking I'm not my friend. I mean, I have friendships and family relationships, not like a relationship, but that would stress me out too if that was not something that was going well.
Think
I suppose.
about all the things. There's so many things that could be put on that list.
Yeah.
The types of relationships like you were just talking about, there's all of those different things. And then there's situations that are going to, and then there's all those, as you were just talking, I was just thinking of all the things that are associated with this: stress, anxiety, depression, and then there is the overwhelm. And when it gets to be big, when it starts feeling big, then it starts to feel unmanageable.
And that's when people kind of freeze.
And that's when, so it was interesting. I found, I was doing a little bit of research on this, and there were actually I found some signs that they were talking about when you feel overwhelmed. So there's things that you can identify to kind of help you recognize if you are acting a certain way, what the why is behind that, and it could be due to overwhelm. And it spoke to it as really kind of this symptom type word, overwhelm. I know sometimes we talk about feeling overwhelmed, and it really is just that, overwhelm. So
because there's too many thoughts passing through your head at one time. And like you said, a lot of people, like yourself included, you start withdrawing or cutting back on the things that you're doing. Like I find in my mind, I'm thinking about, I've got this, and this going on. The season opener for the Seahawks this Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I even want to go? I don't even know if I want to go. I just kind of want to be home and like clean my car. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like those things that I do, and again, I'm just one person. There's plenty of people out there that probably do this too, but is I will clean and organize. That's like one of the ways, and it goes back to feeling like you have some control. I'm sure that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I see that with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and so you have to force yourself to do the things that are supposed to be really enjoyable sometimes, because, my mind just kind of goes to, I need to get my arena in order. I need to get things organized to the point where I can take a deep breath and feel like it's okay. That is the feeling of overwhelmed behavior or overwhelmness. How do you say that word?
Overwhelmingness.
Overwhelmingness. Yeah. That I kind of have been feeling the last several days. And like I was saying before, there's a lot of things that can attribute to that. So if you're talking about different categories of things, there's different branches in each one of those categories. So everybody runs across things differently or has a different temperament, how they manage things. They may have a really low threshold for what they're able to do and manage, and others might have a really high threshold. I say that, and then I think about people that I know who I think have a really high threshold for stress or overwhelmed behavior. And I wonder if they just hide it really well.
I think when you get to a point where you're feeling unable to manage the situation effectively, whatever it might be, that's when it will start to manifest, that the overwhelmingness will start to manifest as stress, anxiety, and really just kind of a helplessness of being unable to keep up.
Yeah.
So that's
so are you kind of talking about like depression though?
I mean, it could go that direction.
Yeah, I suppose it could.
It could go that direction if you are just choosing to ignore and and again, we'll get into some of this, but how your body reacts to these feelings and the different things that will manifest from it. So
I know. So a few weeks ago, I threw my back out. You mentioned, we were talking about that earlier, and I am the biggest flippin' whiner. And it's like, and I know I'm a whiner about it. I'm just calling it out. I mean, I try not to be too much of a whiner, but I know I am. So then I take that and I'm like, I am really not dealing with things nearly as painful as some people.
Yeah.
So is my pain threshold not as high? Or what it really does, what I have found, and this makes sense to me as to why people end up getting addicted to painkillers and things like that, because they just want to make it go away. Mine's not that bad. I mean, I can take a leave, muscle spasm pills, whatever, and it's going to get better. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but not everybody has that light at the end of the tunnel. And so you just start feeling like, oh my God, I can't do anything. I can't do anything without pain. I am a whiner. Nothing sounds good. I mean, it really does truly impact so much. Like, it's made me feel like I am like an old biddy. And it's not even like I did anything. I mean, I literally picked up a case of water. That's all I did.
Well, there's that. I mean, yeah, having pain management on top of, a busy life and stressful situations, deadlines, it can be a lot.
It is.
Because you're not functioning
at
normally.
100%. Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. So you take that, or you take, like a lot of the different things that could be happening in a person's life all at the same time. So let's say, they have kids that are starting a new chapter in school, or they're starting a new job, or they've moved to a new place and they're trying to figure their way around. Take that and add that your back doesn't feel good, or that, you're not able to get things done on, with your Comcast or God knows what, and all of a sudden it's like everything just feels like you just need to put it all down and say, fuck it. And I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to watch reality TV. I mean, that's really what it feels like. But then take, Michelle, and add on to that, if someone has ADHD, which I kind of feel like I might a tiny bit, PTSD, if they have anxiety, if they have autism or anywhere on the spectrum, add those things on top of just normal stressor things that you have in your life. And it's like, can you imagine how hard it must be to deal with some of these things when you have these other health issues that you're having to manage as well? I mean, in the big scope of things, I feel pretty blessed.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about this because I'm feeling so much better already.
Well, and things over the last 5 years, and just things, I just mean really everything, life in general. And, the situation with the pandemic and political things and, world wars, things, all of this stuff. There was a study in just last year, and 24% of adults reported an average stress level of 8 or higher on a scale of 1 to 10.
And this was when?
Just last year. So
Okay.
that's almost,
That's 2023.
Yeah. So that's just last year, 24% of adults. But that is a 20% increase.
Oh, so it was
From
really low
5.
before.
Yeah. But the year before the pandemic, 2019.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's progressively, of course, increasing. The pandemic definitely had part to do with that. But you think of how we moved through that, and now we've come out of it. And with, just like I said, the things going on in the world, there's so many factors that can affect and compound. And if you have a physical ailment, I'm just thinking about my knees. When they used to be I had a lot of pain in my knee. And just to put that on top of everyday things, it's constantly a reminder because you feel it all the time.
Yeah.
And so it can make everything else, when it's difficult, that much more difficult. So let's talk about some of the signs that, so you can recognize if you are feeling overwhelmed and maybe don't realize it.
Okay.
One being you're irritable or frustrated, right? So getting irritable by other people's situations, more than you normally
Like
would.
maybe you're more short-tempered.
Because everyone has those moments of frustration, right?
Sure.
And so that actually might make it a little bit difficult to recognize it as that because that's just kind of a normal thing. But if you constantly feel annoyed by people is what I'm talking about.
Right.
Or even yourself. If you're annoyed with yourself more than you would be otherwise, that is a sign of being overwhelmed, which kind of makes sense.
It does make sense.
If it's harder to connect with other people because of those frustrations.
So perhaps you're preoccupied, you mean, or you're just like not in the moment.
Yeah.
Because your mind is elsewhere.
Yeah, because your mind is elsewhere, which then manifests as this consistent annoyance, even when you like to be calm. Like if you're a calm person and you're getting annoyed with things that you normally wouldn't, that's the sign of being overwhelmed. So, and
I think that if you're the person too that everybody goes to when they're overwhelmed,
yeah,
what do you do
that
when
can be hard.
if you're the one that's overwhelmed and you're the one everybody goes to? Like think about it, the head of a household, whether it's the dad or the mom or whomever, it's like they're the ones that are supposed to be giving the answers to the other people.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know that that's not necessarily the way it is because they're just human beings too. They have life experience and can answer questions. But it's like if they're overwhelmed, it's like the people in their house, the kids, whatever, they don't know. It comes out in all these other ways.
It comes out, yes, in all these other ways. So each one of these that we're going to touch on, they bring out kind of in a nutshell what those warning signs are and how you can fix that. Okay. So kind of like a tip for these things. So like if you're irritable or frustrated, so those warning signs, having less tolerance, right? Mistakes, less tolerance for mistakes, interruptions, those types of things. And you react more strongly to things that typically wouldn't bother you.
I envision in my head some head of a company who's an asshole, and that's how they are all the time. Do you think,
I'm sure they're under a lot of stress and probably are overwhelmed all the time.
So it's probably not just their personality.
Probably not just their personality. So that's where this says, when you're having those reactions that typically don't bother you.
Okay.
And the thing that is recommended for that is just acknowledging, just kind of like you were a little while ago, acknowledging the way you're feeling without judgment. Don't be too hard on yourself. Recognizing what some of those triggers are that is leading to that. So I guess really it's just going to be a pause.
A pregnant pause?
A pregnant pause. Not at our age, but yeah, a pause. A menopause.
A menopause. Or a manopause.
Yeah.
Depending upon who's listening.
Yeah. But self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care and boundaries to help regulate what some of the emotions are that you're feeling.
I think the boundaries thing too it's a challenge when it comes to putting those in place with people that are creating the stresses that or the overwhelmingness, if there's like, for example, really, I'm thinking family members, maybe really high expectations, or there's a lot expected of you, I guess is the best way to put it. And so there's no give, it's just, this is the way it is. This is the person in the family, whoever that person is, that is the one that handles the problems, especially in a larger family. I imagine you have people, some of your siblings over the course of time have been the people that you go to for, they're the most organized.
Certain things.
They're the ones that are calm under pressure, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's definitely things in a family structure, I think that would attribute to.
So another one is feeling helpless or hopeless.
See, that sounds to me like depression.
I think all of these things are intertwined.
Okay.
Really, when you think about anxiety and depression and those types of feelings that a lot of times can lead to depression.
If you're not addressing things or you're just ignoring them, like I'm busy that day, I'm not dealing with whatever it is that's bothering me, it just starts compounding, I imagine, over time. And we've all been there. We've all dealt with things that way. If people haven't, they're lying, because everybody has been dealing with that in one capacity or another in their life. Yeah.
I mean, in regard to this, and you're right, it does sound a lot like depression, especially when I was looking at some of the things they were talking about in regard to this. But, it's a difficult, I'm sure, symptom, that helpless or hopeless, That would be a hard one to try and manage, because it probably, to a certain degree, you probably feel somewhat powerless. A lot of less words, hopeless, helpless, powerless. I think sometimes those feelings can come from having tried solutions and you're still feeling helpless or hopeless. And that in itself then feels helpless and hopeless. Do you know what I'm saying? So really, one thing they were highlighting in regard to this is some of the warning signs are if you tend to be dwelling on negative outcomes and feel like you can't make positive changes in your life. If that is something that you identify is happening, give yourself space to process some of those feelings. I think a lot of the how to, quote unquote, how to fix it in these scenarios are going to be just that, giving yourself space to process, taking 5 minutes to breathe deep, those kinds of things. We hear these things all the time, but do
people really do them though? That's
what I'm saying. I was just going to say, you have to intentionally close the door and take the time to actually do it. Even if it's just in the car.
It's funny that you should say that, because my thought process meditation and everything, I really try to focus on that every day for a good 5-10 minutes. Not a lot really, but a good 5 or 10 minutes. But I find that it helps to center me a little bit and be able to start fresh. The other thing too that I think helps me, I don't know if it'll help other people, is, when we're all busy with whatever activities we have or jobs or whatever. Mine's a little bit all over the place. So I find that if I'm prepared the night before, and I kind of have a plan for what it is that I'm going to be doing with my time, that I can wake up and I'm ready in that regard. Like I can have my coffee or I can do whatever, but I'm not trying to create the plan for the day, that day. I usually put some thought into it the night before, and that way I don't feel it. It's really kind of a preventative measure from feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because it would be really easy to go, okay, the next day, well, shoot, what do I got to do? The other thing too is putting things in order of necessity, because my tendency, and I've seen this with many people, is that you want to do the things, you want to handle the things that you enjoy more, but they're not necessarily the priority.
Right.
So they're on your quote list, but they're not at the top of your list if you're being purposeful with your time.
Right.
They're the things that you kind of put to the end that are, maybe it's deadline is later, or you have more time to prepare for something. But I have to really think about that sometimes. Is this an A? I literally will say, is this an A, B, or C item? And in my head, I know that the deadline for this is sooner. So I'm going to focus on that first, and then I'll get to the other one next, even though I want to do the other thing first because I like it better or whatever. But, I think too, people will have a tendency to, I was talking about taking the hit off the vape pen. You want to kind of numb yourself in some respect. If you're not careful, that's where, people will start drinking too much.
Yeah.
Or they'll maybe smoke too much weed, or they'll be doing too much because they're trying to numb themselves from the feelings of being overwhelmed.
Just think about what I mentioned a little while ago about the productivity that is so stressed in society now, all the things that are so stressful, and the addiction and the alcoholism and all of the things that are so prevalent in our society now are, I think, a result of a lot of those stress factors that are out there, and choices that we make. And it all has to do with choices. So
everything is a choice.
Yeah.
Well, most everything. Yeah. Depends who you're talking to.
For the helpless and hopeless, though, like you were saying, to be able to achieve and feel accomplishment, even just the smallest things, consistently anxious or worried can cause overwhelm, constant anxiety.
The funny thing about worrying is that it doesn't do you any good. But then again, if you don't worry, it kind of makes you feel like you don't care.
Right. There's all of these things.
A contradiction in terms there, right?
But I mean, it will manifest itself in this lingering
Mhm.
apprehension and uneasiness,
And
right?
even if you try to kind of get past it or to put it on this shelf over here, like you said, it's sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
It's sitting there. You know, it's ruminating. It's in the back of your brain.
Mind is constantly working.
Yeah, until it's gone. Until
to keep you
it's been
safe
resolved.
from these supposedly things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to predict the outcomes and however, yeah.
But you almost end up putting more stress on yourself by trying to predict the outcome or worst case scenario or, you know, whatever you do to try to, you know, talk it through. You can probably create more angst for yourself that way.
Well, and then physically, it can, you know, tense muscles, trouble sleeping, right? Some of those things which was going to make you exhausted. Right? That lack of sleep. So,
well, there is such a thing as, you know, mental exhaustion too.
Yes.
Which is just your thoughts racing.
Right.
And how do you stop that?
Ground yourself in the present moment.
Okay.
I think that's a big one, and that's hard to do, especially with technology. Just here we go with the phones and everything else again. But you know, with all that, and you're constantly you're scrolling, you're seeing things that are going on in the world, you're seeing things that are happening in the news. These are all things that contribute to stress and anxiety, and you don't even realize.
You're going to crack up when I tell you this, but it's like one of the ways in my thought process to eliminate some of this or ground yourself, I think was the term you used.
Yeah.
You're going to laugh, is to get into nature.
That's
like all I wanted to do tonight, and it was too late by the time I came home, but I just wanted to go down to Richmond Beach and watch the sunset or just be down there with the wind. The dogs were down there today. They got a great walk down there today with someone else. It wasn't with me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, damn, they're so lucky. Look at them. They're all walking around, having a great time. But yeah, just getting into nature and just kind of, it just centers you and grounds you. And you're probably the one person I know that's like, there's one other person I can think of that's really like that too. And I'm not necessarily, that's a little bit counterintuitive to me. I don't know why, but it wouldn't be my first thought. But I know when I'm feeling like on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being no big deal and 10 being like, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed. I've probably been today at like a 6 or 7 yesterday and today. And that is what in my mind, I was thinking that sounds like it might be kind of good, like a picnic or, you know, something.
I mean, when you think about it, when you remove because this is a big one for me, you know me in nature, right? But so you think about, you're surrounding yourself with all this busyness and with traffic and with phone calls and with deadlines and, you know, people that might not be too happy about whatever it might be, whether it's family, it's work, there's all of these things, right? Pick yourself up and take yourself out, get in the car, listen to music that you love, drive to somewhere peaceful like Richmond Beach. And to your point, it's like you get out and you hear water. Leave your phone in the car.
And you see all these people like relaxing.
Holding hands, laughing. There's a slight breeze. You hear the water on the shore. The sun is setting and it's beautiful. And if you just close your eyes, I'm a nature geek. I recognize that because I'll be out there and I'm like, I noticed there was an apple tree and it had this limb that was kind of arched and it kind of hung low on the end because of the apple that was on there. But the sun caught my eye directly through, and it was almost like this framed picture from nature. Yeah. And I don't know why, but I recognize these things and it stopped me in my tracks. And you listen to the birds singing and just the rabbits it's like this at Richmond Beach. There's rabbits like hopping around and you can hear them through the grass and in the thicket of, you know, berry bushes. And there's just a lot of, all of those things that I was just talking about, way more enjoyable than the first set of things that I talked about, right? Yeah. The traffic, the people, the deadlines, the phone calls, all of that stuff.
You say traffic and all, I just have this vision of I-5.
Even just the side streets now
Yeah.
is crazy.
But that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So we do have to worry about, well, we don't have to worry. We have to figure out how to manage, I guess.
So there's all those normal, regular, everyday things that unfortunately we kind of we are accustomed to. So really, again, back to that pause and doing something intentional to break away from that, to give yourself some calm and peace and mindfulness and breathing, whatever that might be. If you intentionally do that on a daily basis, I think you will probably find that it is somewhat helpful, even if for just in that moment.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. So another one of these things is withdrawing from social activities. I told you when I was like, well, that's me. I can tell when I'm withdrawing from whether it's social activities or sometimes phone calls or text messages. I just kind of like tune it out.
I know people are like, what's going on with her?
Yeah. And I do recognize when I am like that for those reasons. And I know it's not normal for me and that there is something bigger associated with it. Sometimes I don't know what it is, but it definitely is a sign of overwhelm if you find yourself withdrawing from,
just your regular everyday activities
and social activities. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's also other reasons people can withdraw, obviously, from those things because they've got one thing I've noticed is like I will overcommit. Or I swear to God, that calendar on my iPhone, I put it on the wrong day. I do this all the time and I'll double book myself.
She does.
I do. And it's, because you twirl it and it's like it gets on the date and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, sometimes I book things and I book them on the wrong day just for what this doesn't even make any sense, but my brain is like whack-a-mole all over the place sometimes, I know. And that's when I know Zoe says, mom, you need to focus. We need to focus on, because in my mind, I'm like, no, I want to do this over here. And we're like, when we're talking about getting like staging stuff together for a house, I'm like, I'm in the storage locker and I'm like pulling stuff from different areas. And she goes, we need to focus on the living room.
Back to the ADHD.
Yes, I know. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And I've been that way my whole life. So it's like, it's hard to know any different, but it is really true.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing it more now, probably because I'm trying not to multitask as much.
Yeah.
I think multitasking is a farce. It really is because we talked about that in the last episode, because you're really not paying attention, like, okay, I can multitask. I can pet Harlow. She's right here, right?
Yeah.
I can pet Harlow and talk at the same time.
Right.
But it doesn't take any of my brain energy.
She can't talk and pet Harlow.
Right. She can't talk back. No, it doesn't take my brain energy to be able to, pet Harlow. Now, if she was wanting to play fetch or something while we're doing this, that would be a problem because I'm trying to focus on two things at once and I'm not giving you the attention that you so richly deserve.
Oh,
Michelle.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's different types of multitasking, I guess is what I'm getting at. And there's, like I have my phone over here. I heard it go off when we were recording and I'm just like, shit. So I look at it and I'm like, it's my mom.
Yeah.
I'll call her back later. But it's like, I usually don't even have it here with me. I have it over there for that very reason, because I don't want to get distracted.
Yeah.
So what else do we have on your list?
Avoiding important tasks.
Okay.
So if you tend to,
that's called procrastination.
Yes, at some point it is. If you find it being consistent, I guess, is probably where it's manifesting as the overwhelm. If it's a consistent pattern of trying to avoid things, it might indicate something more underlying. When you avoid important tasks, so procrastination, I suppose, avoidance, when you see that becoming a consistent pattern, I think that's when it's something to recognize, possibly.
So when you say avoidance, are you talking about like conversations with people, or avoiding people, or avoidance of like something that you're responsible to take care of?
Yeah,
or is it could be a variety of things?
It could be a variety of things. And really, I think avoidance or procrastination, it's probably a coping mechanism for some people.
And I'm
which,
a big procrastinator. Well, not with everything, but
which shows there's an underlying issue
Right.
if it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Procrastination. And people procrastinate, but if it's something that is consistent and there's a consistent pattern that is different,
they're avoiding something.
Yes. So
with me, it's about having the time to complete the project without being interrupted by other project, or if it's a project, I'm thinking it's got to be, that's where my procrastination comes in. It's like, you never can find the perfect time. So why do you keep trying? Just fit it in. That's where, I mean, my logical brain is saying that.
Well, and sometimes things I think just feel too big. It's too much.
You break it up in chunks.
That's what, So one of the things to be able to accomplish or overcome is going to be just that, breaking it up into smaller bite-sized pieces so that you can accomplish the task.
One thing that I had run across, again, going back to how I'm envisioning I would help myself, right? Because we can talk about a lot of different things and everybody is going to handle things maybe in their own way. But the one thing that I ran across that I've been trying to think through is, why am I feeling overwhelmed? What is it that's creating this overwhelmingness to me? And is it the actual thing? Or is it what I anticipate or want to avoid in terms of the result of that thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, kind of dealing with the stuff that I've been dealing with this week, it's like I'm overwhelmed by it because I'm trying to do too many things at once. And I find that I will forget things or have to go back and do things like, oh God, I forgot. Like today, I think I came back into the house twice when I was leaving because I forgot things. Like I left everything in the laundry room that I wanted to take with me. And obviously I didn't leave everything because I went, shit, I had to come back because I forgot something that was not in the laundry room, but it was in another car. But I do that kind of stuff all the time. Like I think that I'm ready to go and I'm all put together and da 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 da. And then I'm like, shit, I get 6 blocks away. I'm like, you forgot. Yeah. You know what? This is kind of a little funny, but I start driving back and I'm like, well, if anybody was going to rob my house, like they saw me leave, they're going to get surprised.
Yes, they will.
That's how my brain thinks.
I think too that when we get that way, there would come into play a change in eating habits, which can affect you physically also. So the overwhelm, the busyness, all the things, just like you're talking about, which contribute to it, can affect things like healthy eating habits. We're going to not have time to eat. You're going to be too busy. You're going to forget. And our bodies need fuel to function.
And then you start eating things that aren't good for you.
Well, and then you get hungry and you get irritable, the whole hangry thing. And so there's a lot of spin-offs to that too.
What do you do, Michelle? You stop at McDonald's, don't you?
I have before. Should we just talk about that? I know what she's referring to, so I'll just tell everybody. So I'm not in the closet about it anymore. I confessed the other day that a few months back, I stopped at McDonald's on the way home from work, and they had the buy a Big Mac, get a quarter pounder for $1. You have all these choices. You know, you buy one, you get one for $1. So I thought, I'm going to get a quarter pounder with cheese because that's what I love if I go there, is a quarter pounder with cheese. And then I got the Big Mac for $1 because I'm thinking, my grown son is at home and he'll probably eat a Big Mac. So I'm going to get that. So I ate the quarter pounder with cheese as I was driving home. And then I got home and my son wasn't home.
And those things taste really bad if they're cold.
Yeah. So I ate the Big Mac too. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
I know I'm desperate if I stop at McDonald's.
Closet burger eater here.
Yeah. I'm a closet burger eater too. Except
funny.
It's Dick's. I don't even get the fries. I just get the drink.
Crazy is I never eat at McDonald's. And for whatever reason that night, I just was hungry and it's right on the corner as I come home and I just did it.
And you were overwhelmed.
I double did it. Obviously overwhelmed. I was after I ate both of those burgers.
Instead of stopping at the grocery store and getting vegetables, like who was going to do that?
Right?
No one ever.
No one ever.
Anyway, so kind of, wrapping a little bit of this up, the one real thing that I was like, when I was looking through some of this stuff, I was thinking, what is one thing where you just kind of, that you're in a bad place or that you're overwhelmed and you get a hug. I know this sounds really crazy, but someone gives you a hug.
Yeah.
And it's like, and everything just feels better.
It's true.
Yeah, it's really true. It's like you can melt your day away. So like for those of you that are in relationships and stuff, you come home and you've got your person there, and your person, you just can kind of like, melt into their arms and just, be a whiner for a minute and just like melt the day away.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's like, really, is anything really that horrible?
Right.
No, it's not as horrible.
Doesn't seem to be when you stop and think of the grander scheme.
Yeah. And if it's really, really bad, you can always see a therapist. We know a really good one. Her name's Kate.
Yes, Kate Schroeder.
Call us if you'd like to get her info.
Her link is actually still on our page.
Is it? Okay.
On Instagram. So if you go to our profile on Instagram, because we are on there, a blonde, a brunette, and a mic. Mm-hmm. Kate Schroeder's link is there, and she is she's an amazing therapist. So
she really is wonderful, and we actually are going to have her on here again. But anyway. We digress a tiny bit. I like saying that word. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that is the one thing that I feel people need. I mean, because it's so hard sometimes to figure out all of this shit we're talking about by yourself.
All we need is
even
love.
If you, what?
Da, 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 da.
Is the Beatles?
Yeah.
All I need is love.
Yeah.
Sing it with me, Michelle.
Da, da, da.
All I need is love. Love. Love is all you need. And on that note,
I think we should probably wrap it up.
And Michelle, I'm going to give you a big hug once we get off.
Oh boy. Well, let's keep talking then. Let's keep talking. To wrap up. No, we really are going to wrap up, but just want to say being overwhelmed is definitely not an enjoyable experience, especially once you start recognizing it with so many of these things that we talked about. Your bodies manifest it into other ways physically, headaches, stomach aches, aches, pains, different lack of sleep, all of these things.
My neck.
Yeah.
My back. All the things.
All of the things. So it really just wanted to put it out there, talk about it, try and recognize some of these symptoms of overwhelm so that you can get yourself in a better space of feeling healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. So,
and I think the final note, the final thought on that, which I'm going to take to heart, is just give yourself a little grace.
And a hug.
Well, I can give myself a hug, but it's not quite the same.
And on that note,
peace out, people.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Bye.